got that nerd rage. Nerd rage. I got that nerd rage. Nerd rage.
Welcome back, guys, once again to the Nerd Rage Podcast. I am Ryan Anderson, and joining me is the Marvel guy, the Skyman Hype Man.
Brad Learman.
What's up, buddy?
Not much, man. Not much.
So I wanted to ask, I heard you were doing some things in the background. What are you working on lately?
So right now I've got, or at least I think I got some stuff for, I think it's just a couple of taglines for like our weekly shows that I am currently working on.
Nice. I actually saw a couple of those images, and I think they look really good. So just kind of excited to show off some new stuff, because I know we've had kind of samey looking logos there for a while, and some people love them, honestly. And shout out to Matt, who made the modified version of our Nerd Rage logo years ago that he sells on our TeePublic store, because his version is very cool, and I'd make that our logo as well if I could. But yeah, Brad's working on some cool stuff, and I can't wait for you guys to see it. So I do have to mention some stuff here at Need to Know, top of the show. There are a couple sad things to mention. We lost Rutger Hauer today at the age of 75. So, I mean, I just got to put it to you, Brad. What are your favorite memories of his work?
Honestly, as Roy Batty in the original Blade Runner.
Yeah, totally.
He was really good in there. And if you forgot, he was the original CEO, or at least the replacement CEO on in Batman Begins.
I was going to mention Batman Begins, yeah. Another one that I really like is his role in the Hitcher. Yeah, like the remake was something, yeah, I mean, it was all right, but like I really love the original version, and he was great in it. He's done a lot of great work over the years too. He even, I think, if I'm not mistaken, cameoed in Smallville for a little bit. Had very good ties with Warner Brothers, as far as I understand. So yeah, very one of a kind kind of actor. It's just sad that we lost him. And other kind of sad news on the side here, not as sad, but still unfortunate to announce. It looks like Sport Crate, who had been sponsoring our Super Kick Society show, they were, I guess, kind of getting rid of that program. So we will not be doing any sort of promotion with them. But Loot Crate is still here, and Loot Crate is here to stay. So nothing wrong on the Loot Crate side. It just, we're losing the Sport Crate side of things. I know Brad's all choked up about that one because, I mean, he never got to do any Sport Crate stuff for us anyways. So
I didn't.
I told Christian and Dylan, and they were like, what? How did we lose him? I was like, it wasn't our fault. We didn't do anything wrong. It just happened. Some good news here at the top of the show, though, I want to mention, unrelated to what we usually talk about, but kind of in the similar vein of the sports stuff with our Super Kick Society show, even though it is on a bit of a hiatus because, you know, Christian being in the Army and all that stuff. We've got some stuff to work on there. We are announcing, and actually Warner Brothers / TNT sent it to us today, that AEW is premiering on October 2nd. So for any of you guys who are big wrestling types, that is going live on October 2nd on TNT. So you guys can look forward to that. Maybe some competition for WWE. We'll see. Also, I am enjoying a little bit of some Stranger Things love. I don't know if you got to check any Stranger Things season 3 out, have you?
I did.
So before it came out, they sent us this huge crate that was all Coca-Cola related and stuff in like promotion of the show. So they gave me like 2 cans of new Coke, which I've been dying to try. So I poured myself a glass tonight. I don't know what you're drinking on the other end. I think you got a cola or something on your side.
It's actually just a sun-kissed orange.
Sun-kissed, that's not bad. I can't even remember. Are they Coke? I don't remember their company.
Hold on, let me tell you in 3 seconds.
This is like the worst sponsorship for Coca-Cola we've ever done.
Isn't it really?
Yeah, I know.
It actually does not say.
Oh, it's all good.
It's a property of Dr. Pepper.
Oh, those guys. Forget those guys. It's all about Coke here. But anyways, you know what? Me saying it's all about Coke here makes me sound like I'm promoting something else. But I really do actually like this new Coke. I mean, I don't know why they got rid of it. It's kind of like when they brought in Crystal Pepsi. I was like, why did you get rid of it? Because people didn't like looking at a clear cola. I mean, I heard that the sales were bad for some of these things, but I'm trying it now for like the first time, and it's fantastic. So if you guys get a chance, I think they're selling them on their website for a limited time while Stranger Things is out and about. So if you guys get a chance, go check out some new Coke and buy yourself a crate. That reminds me, have you watched all of Stranger Things season 3 yet?
I have.
Okay. Initial thoughts? Quick reaction?
Still pretty good. I think I liked the second season more, and I still like the first season more.
Really? See, I thought season 2 was when they kind of went down a little bit. Season 2, when they do that disjointed episode where she goes to, I don't know where it was, like Chicago or New York or whatever, and just like it's a complete detour from what they were doing. I think I could kind of see why they did it, but it felt such, I don't know, like almost like its own backdoor pilot for something else that they wanted to do down the road if Stranger Things became really big. I wasn't feeling it. I do love the first season though. This season, I mean, I loved it from beginning to end, and I just could not stop watching. So I binged it probably in a day or two, to say the least. But yeah, I would highly recommend it. If any of you guys haven't checked it out, go see Stranger Things, or get caught up. Maybe you can miss season 2, but I wouldn't. I think going from beginning to end, it's just a fantastic show. Did you have a favorite episode this season? Or, I mean, you kind of seemed like it wasn't totally your favorite. Like, how would you? I
still enjoyed it.
How would you rank them season wise?
I would put, actually, you know what? I like season 3 more than season 2.
Oh, okay.
Kind of just quickly thinking about it.
I mean, I will be honest, even though I was just proudly promoting New Coke here for a second, when they did that little promotion in there, I was like, kind of like, I think you held that camera on him a little too long while he's doing that. Because it felt very much like he was speaking to the audience like, hey, check it out. And there was another part too. I think it was, the never ending story thing, which when they did it, I laughed hysterically, but I've seen some people on Twitter like, oh my gosh, this is such shameless 80s pandering. But I'm like, that's what this all is. Like, that's the reason people love Stranger Things, is that it's, kind of like a goofy throwback, but also kind of mixes in like 5 different kinds of 80s movies into one season, and it's kind of great for that reason, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Are you excited for a 4th season? Because it sounds like we're getting one.
I don't know. It's a little difficult to tell where they go.
Yeah.
Instead of just random bad guy trying to shoot energy into a wall.
I'm actually glad that you didn't like spoil it or anything, because I know that there's an easy thing that I could bring up right now about a certain character and their fate, that it goes a little deeper than that if I were to talk about it. But I think that there's some interesting stuff that they still need to dip into, and there is like a little end credits teaser thing that they have, so they're not slowing down anytime soon. The only thing I'm concerned about though is how young are they going to keep these kids, because they're not going to stay this size forever. So they're going to have to evolve them along with the show.
Maybe it'll be the long form version of it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. You just watch him for like 10 years, get older and older and older. I like it. Okay. So, that was pretty much the top of the show. There's not much really else to bring up other than keep an eye out for new things, new changes. I'm still evolving the website as we go, and Brad's working on those logos. If any of you guys reach out to us, maybe I'll pick your brain like I did our little chat group, just to see if you guys like what we're putting together and get some feedback off of you. So you can always hit us up at nerdragepod@gmail.com. But let's go into rumor mill here. Okay, so for rumor mill, we're hearing, and this cannot be 100% confirmed, that's why we put it in rumor mill here, that it's possible we might get a crossover between Runaways, and what do you think, Brad?
Oh gosh, Runaways, and let's say I'm just gonna throw it out there. Let's say Inhumans.
It's Cloak and Dagger. Yeah.
Uh,
So I don't totally believe this, and this was passed on to us by someone that's close to the show. Not one of the regular sources that we have, but he has been a source of information in the past. So I'm curious what you think about this, because I know you haven't really watched either of the two series, but the idea of them coming together, does that intrigue you?
I mean, I don't have an issue with. I mean, which direction is it going to go? Is it going to be the Runaways that are just going to join Cloak and Dagger?
No, it sounds like
Cloak
and Dagger are going to go on the Runaways, and this is my problem with it, because I feel like I've talked about this on previous episodes, that Cloak and Dagger is one of those. It really needs to find itself, and I think it's just lost in the weeds completely. And I think really what this is they're taking a show that, I mean, at least on the television side, Runaways might be one of the best Marvel TV shows that they have. So to put it on them and go, hey, like, make these guys cool, make everyone want to watch them, it kind of feels like that. I don't know. I feel like it could work, but I just don't want to see it, because it's like taking a bad thing and adding it to a good thing, and it won't make the good thing better. I think, if anything, it makes the good thing a little worse.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, yeah, you feel the same. So it's a possibility. It could be coming down the line. Maybe not. We'll just have to wait and see. I'm aside from the other Hulu series that they've announced, like the MODOK, Hit Monkey, all that stuff that they've been proposing, and the Ghost Rider and that sort of thing, I'm worried about the currently existing properties. Those are the ones that have me the most kind of thinking that they're not going to last for much longer. I mean, Runaways is doing okay, but I want to see what they do beyond this season, because it just feels like they're kind of treading water. Like they've got an audience. It's a good show, but I don't hear that kind of pop like you did with Daredevil or any of those like Netflix shows when they first hit. It just it's got a weird audience. That's really where I'm at with it, to say the least. Do you think you'll ever end up watching one of these two?
Probably not.
I didn't think so. All right, well, let's get into the normal stuff like we always do. DC, Marvel, or miscellaneous? What do you think, Brad?
Let's go DC first.
DC it is. Okay, and we got a lot to unpack here, because our big talk for this week is all about San Diego Comic-Con. We did a little bit there, got a lot to report on, and I want to thank all of the people who, when I posted up some of the stuff that I did, people lost their minds about the Marvel stuff, which is great, because Marvel has a huge showing, and Phase 4 looks like it's going to be great, and we're going to talk about that in the big talk at the end of the show here. For DC, they also had a great presence, but it was more on the TV side. They did bow out, as we mentioned, I believe, on our last show. So they did not have a film presence per se, but right here in TV talk, though, we got a lot. So let's start with Arrow. We unfortunately know that Arrow is coming to an end this season. They're only doing 10 episodes. But from everything that we're hearing, it's supposed to have a much bigger feel. I think they added a little bit more to the production value because there's less episodes. They're really trying to like make it feel like, you know, kind of like how Gotham was with its last few episodes, where they were like, okay, we're trying to give it a slightly bigger feel because we know that we're just going to close this out the right way. First of all, have you seen the trailer for it?
For the last season of Arrow?
Yeah, they dropped it during Comic-Con.
I actually haven't.
Really? Okay. Well, I wouldn't say it's super influential as to like, or telling as to what we're going to get this season. Other than there's a couple new shots of Katie Cassidy in a much better looking Black Canary kind of suit, shorter hair and all that stuff. I think she looks great. She always does, honestly. But I think they're really going to try and make her as close to Black Canary as they can. What I think was really interesting about it, though, first of all, she's going to be directing her own episode this season, which I think that's awesome. She mentioned on Entertainment Weekly's live stream during the con that I think they're going to they do this 2-year program if you want to become a director under Warner Brothers. So she actually went and did the schooling for it all while she was filming the show, and I guess she's like suited for it, and everyone's excited to see her. I mean, this isn't the first time we've seen someone from these shows go behind the camera. Do you think she'll do as good as everyone else, or maybe a little better even?
Well, I mean, there's no way she can do terrible, to be perfectly honest.
That's true. I mean, we know what terrible directing looks like, and I don't think she's going to be anywhere close to that.
No.
And plus, most of these DC shows are kind of like Marvel movies in the sense that they're practically on autopilot anyways. They make very few different stylistic changes when they go from, one thing to the next. So
yeah, I don't know if she'll be entirely involved in the cinematography though. Like, I think she'll be more from like a writing and producing or directing.
Yeah, or maybe a couple different character choices or how they interact with each other, that sort of thing. But still, interesting and cool. It does sound like, and this is something I was saying for the longest time, for those who've been following our show since 2015, that I had the feeling that she was unhappy too about the direction of her character. And if you watch that EW stream that they did, right? Yeah, I mean, you and I were both, pretty understandably upset about the fact that they killed her off in a way that didn't feel like it was really earned
by a random knife.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, it was good in that jarring, almost Game of Thrones way where you're like, oh, I didn't see that coming. Cause
yeah, this isn't Game of Thrones though.
Exactly. And I think that was kind of like an all the rage thing. Plus, if I'm being honest, I think they were trying to find a way to incorporate another Black Canary in by bringing in Dinah, which is cool because that is the comics. But I think they were just trying to find a way to slot in another diverse character. And I'm not against that, but I think letting her go could have been a more authentic way. They could have said, much like Roy did, where he went off to, I think it was Bloodhaven, like she could have just left the show for a little while. You didn't have to kill her, but they did it. It created an emotional impact, but I feel like they did it for the wrong reasons. So bringing it back to the present, they have this stream on Entertainment Weekly where they're interviewing the whole cast. She's talking about her directorial debut, and then she kind of she gets asked something to the extent of, well, how do you feel about the metamorphosis of your character and everything? And she goes, well, I wish, some things had been done a little differently. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but she's basically kind of doing that tiptoe thing where like, yeah, they could have handled me a little bit better, but I'm glad that they're finally basically making me Black Canary now. So to make a long story short, it sounds like she feels the same way we all did about her being killed off and then brought back the way that she was. But it's nice to see that that they went with Dinah. They went, oh, okay, we gave her the canary cry. Now we took that away from her because she's clearly not what the fans wanted. So we're going to give you Black Canary for the last 10 episodes of the show. So I still would like her and Oliver to hook up. I mean, they wrote out, for a lack of a better word, Felicity from the show. She won't be returning this season as far as we know. So it would be cool if they had like a little romantic hookup, but at this point they've already given Oliver a daughter and, Mia Smoke is already a thing. So I think that ship has sailed, but it'll at least be cool to see Katie be Black Canary now. So, I mean, are you excited for the last 10 episodes or are you kind of like the ship has sailed for me?
No, I mean, I think I have a little bit more of an incentive to watch it now.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
versus the last 2 or 3 seasons that have been pathetically boring.
I would say that they've dragged in some parts. I think there were some shining moments in, I want to say seasons 5 and 6. 4 was a little rough, and 3 kind of went off the cliff. Right, ironically, after Oliver went off the cliff.
Yeah, pretty much.
But, like all these shows, they have ups and downs, and I've talked about this before, like the idea that they go through these hills and valleys because I feel like they allocate their attention to ones that are struggling, make them great for another season, and then they keep that as kind of their directive, and then they just let the other ones coast by, which is why I think they put so much into Supergirl last season. Despite how some people feel about it, I feel like they tried their hardest to make that an engaging show. And I think they're going to try and do it again this season because we have some news coming out of Supergirl. She's rocking a new suit. She's losing the skirt, the classic skirt that she's always worn. And there was a lot of flack. And at first, when I looked at it, I thought she just looked like she was straight up pissed off. But then they showed some of the promos and then some of her like in action with the suit. I actually kind of like it now. What do you think? Skirt, pants. She's got a bangs now. Amanda and I have been making little jokes about bangs for different reasons. It's a long story. But I think it actually works more than I first thought. So what's your take?
I mean, does it still look different than Kal-El's suit?
It looks a little better than the Superman that they created for the TV version.
Okay.
I think my biggest hang up with it when I was, going over it like a second or third time was that in the previous seasons, she had like this yellow trim outline of the crest. And I think that kind of like made the suit pop a little bit extra. And I think it was just a lighter touch that I appreciated. I mean, honestly, I could even get that from Superman. And I kind of appreciate that, but I think it worked for her. And I was a little disappointed that they didn't decide to keep that with this new design. It's it's a little bit more serious, but I think she's got a smile that could light up a room. And I think that kind of helps. And I think that's really one of those things that just adds to her character. Like, I think if you got someone who was like Gina Carano or something like that to be Supergirl, like she's got that kind of very serious face. And I think it probably wouldn't play like, oh, I'm happy, bubbly Supergirl. But there's something about her energy, though, as Supergirl that I think just works. Even like, no matter how serious or dark you want to make it, I think there's something that still shines through despite all that. And I'm actually kind of excited to see what they do with this next season. It seems like there's this whole Leviathan thing that's going to be tormenting her life. Lena is now working with her brother Lex to a certain extent and trying to bring Supergirl down. So I think it'll be an interesting season to say the least. Do you have any high hopes for Supergirl, or are you still kind of on the outs with it?
I don't know. It was a little cringy the last time I watched it.
Fair enough.
I mean, that hasn't been in a couple of years, so.
Well, I'm going to throw in one last bit with Supergirl that I'm curious to see how you respond to it. So, Makad Brooks, who has been Guardian / Jimmy Olsen or James Olsen, as they call him on the show,
okay.
And was a point of contention for a lot of people, to be honest. He is now leaving the show after this season, or at least sometime during this season. So do you think the loss of Jimmy or James Olsen is something that makes you interested or makes you more disappointed in the series?
I mean, Guardian had always been sort of a kind of a sidekick character.
Yeah.
And plus, like Jimmy Olsen, I mean, I think, I don't know, did they make Jimmy Olsen Guardian in the comics?
No, he never was. And that was them trying to blend two worlds together.
Okay.
They did
okay,
and see, this is the thing. Like, I actually really, even when they frustrate me on a comic book kind of continuity level with the CW, I still find a way to at least appreciate it. Because, with all due respect, unlike, Freeform Network, they're putting a lot into making these characters at least likable or engaging in some capacity where you're like, oh, okay, I don't see this being any sort of comic book continuity, but at least
sure,
they're having some sort of fun with it, and it still kind of works, even when it doesn't always make me happy. So I respect it for that. And, I don't care about the change of ethnicity. I don't care that he's probably twice the size as what Jimmy Olsen in the comics is. I don't even care that his energy isn't the same, kind of going back to what we were saying about MJ with Spider-Man, how she's not really spiritually the kind of energy that you'd expect from that character from all the years you've read that character. So it was just really jarring to me when they decided to make him Guardian too. It was almost like they were like, oh, well, you don't have to worry about the whole Jimmy Olsen thing. He's now running the paper. He's now working with wind shot, and then they're going to do the whole Guardian thing. It just felt like they were just trying to find things for him to do as the seasons went on. So I think I'm actually okay with him leaving. But I never really had an actual problem with him, like where I was like, oh, he's just a bad actor. He's doing nothing for this scene. I felt like character-wise and growth-wise, they were trying to make a romance with him and Supergirl, and when people just did not want that, they just shut that down and kept trying to find something for him to do. And it just, I don't know, I feel like it kind of got boring with him, to be honest. So him leaving, maybe he'll come back down the road for, I don't know, season 7 or something like that. But I think I'm okay with this for now. Maybe we'll see him down the road again. So let's keep moving here. Actually, another thing with Supergirl that I mentioned, Lex Luthor is back. Did you get a chance to check out any of that portrayal when we got it last season? Because
no.
He is fantastic, honestly. I never expected John Cryer to be, because I still think of him as like Ducky. I think of him as, I forget the Lex Luthor's nephew that he was in Superman 4. But he's always been a part of the Warner Brothers family in a big way, or at least in some capacity, I should say. So when he came in, I was like, man, I don't think this is going to work. But man, they gave him the Lex Luthor exosuit. He has some battles in the sky with Supergirl. And sure, it is on like a TV budget, but they still make it look halfway decent. And his like master plan that he has is really engaging. So like the last maybe 5 or 6 episodes of the season, it's actually really good. Really? And like, even if you're one of these types that's all caught up on like CW political this and PC this and all that stuff, like even if you have a problem with that, like the Lex Luthor story that he involves Supergirl in, I think is engaging enough that you're like, okay, this is a cool story.
That's good. He kind of needed to get out of the 2.5 men role.
He really did. And he is such a funny guy. Like when he sits down and he does interviews, he's just a total delight. And I just want to see him in a lot more stuff. So when they put him on this, I was like, he's going to go for the serious thing. And I don't normally see that, but man, when he gets serious, he's fantastic. And they say that a lot about comedic actors, is that like they have the range to go very big with their performance, but they also know how to take it in and become serious and all that stuff. So I think that's a testament to his overall range as an actor. And I think it really shows in Supergirl in the last season. So let's keep moving on here, because I don't want to spend all day talking about 2 shows. Flash, we're not going to be losing Vibe. The rumors that were going around for forever, it seemed like we were going to have Vibe, kind of lose his powers and then maybe go off into the sunset. But no, it is not true. We are keeping him on, and he is confirmed in, I think, the EW interviews or some of the stuff that happened during Comic-Con. He's like, no, I'm not going anywhere. I'm sticking around. So we don't have to worry about Vibe leaving the Flash crew. I'm going to ask you this. Do you think he's ever going to get his powers back?
I mean, I don't really care.
Did you? I thought you fell out of. Did you fall out of Flash?
Honestly, I've never really watched The Flash.
Oh, I thought you watched at least the first couple seasons.
No, I mean,
okay.
I know who Vibe is, like watching the
crossover
episodes and whatnot. But
yeah, Cisco.
Beyond that, like I don't really.
Oh, that's
Vibe
fine.
Hey,
you're Mr. Marvel. I get it.
Confined to the Flash universe, so.
Yeah, totally.
I'm not really all that heartbroken about it, I suppose.
Long story short for you then is that he did leave his powers behind, decided to, I'll put it in this way, Mr. Marvel. It's like he decided to take the mutant cure, and he walked away from having his powers because he wanted to live a normal life. So there's a possibility that he could get his powers back down the road because he chose to opt out of it. But
hey, they showed Magneto getting his powers back at the end of X3. So.
Exactly. And see, there's a reference I knew you'd get. So I think down the road, the situation will call for it, and then he'll come back. Everyone will be like, oh my gosh, he's got his powers back. And everyone will be happy. Another thing, are you a fan of Heroes, the superhero show that kind of kicked off a lot of our.
The first 2 seasons, yeah. The last two, not really. That was more of an issue with the Screenwriters Guild, though.
Yeah,
but that's kind of a discussion for like maybe another time.
You know, it never really gets brought up, but I actually liked Heroes Reborn when they brought it back. My biggest problem with it, and you guys can go back and listen to our stuff and how we thought about it back then, but is just that the special effects were terrible.
The special effects were a little terrible. I think certain points of the plot were just a little slow.
Oh yeah, no, episodes. I know.
Yeah. But I think they were trying to draw it out just a little bit more than they should have.
Agreed. Yeah, it could have been maybe like I want to say like, I think they went for like the whole 20 episode season, and they should have went for more like 10 to 15. I think that would have been more concise and it probably would have worked better. But anyways, what was one of the standout actors from that show for you?
Oh God, well, I know who we're going to talk about. But,
Senthil Ramamurthy.
It's definitely, it was Peter Petrelli. It was,
Peter and Nathan Petrelli always stuck out to me.
Milo
Ventimiglia. Yeah.
He was actually really good.
I know. And that was really like the birth of their, both him and the guy who played Nathan Petrelli, because they went on to do a lot more stuff. But anyways, Senthil Ramamurthy, who we know from the show,
Mohinder.
Yeah, Mohinder. So as big as he was, we hadn't heard much about him since then. And I know that he went on to do some other side projects along the way, but he's coming to The Flash. So he will be our big bad. He will be playing Bloodwork. So to put it simply, he's kind of like a... how do I put it? A infectious kind of character where he actually he gets into your blood, hence the name Bloodwork. That's probably the simplest way I can put it, but he wants to basically, infect Team Flash and kill them all and that sort of thing. So, what do you think about adding him? Did you see the trailer for this one at all?
I didn't, but adding him is probably a good step.
I mean, I love what they did villain-wise last season. They, bringing in some of these actors that you haven't seen in a while, it adds a little spark and interest, because it's like, oh yeah, what is so-and-so been up to? But yeah, I really want to see what they do with him, because I was getting tired of the speedster thing, and I don't really want to see the mad scientist thing, which I guess from what I'm hearing, he has a touch of that. But it doesn't feel like, I don't know, it feels more like more of an otherworldly creature rather than, something so one-dimensional as like a scientist or a speedster of sorts. He feels like he's a little bit more well-rounded, and I'm kind of excited for that. Because Cicada was good, and I kind of like Chris Klein playing him. And then they brought in, I can't remember her name, but it was the adult version of his niece, and I can't think of her name, but she was in Final Destination 2, which is why I know most of these people. But I think this will be a better villain than Cicada, because Cicada just was like, I've got a twirling dagger that'll kill anyone in its path, and I was just like, whatever. So looking forward to seeing him on the show. And I think we should talk about one last one, because yes, we had trailers for Black Lightning. We had, I think, one for Legends of Tomorrow as well. And it's all great, and I could spend all day talking about them, but obviously you guys can go and check those out. The last one on the CW side is Batwoman. Now I know, Brad, you do not like Batwoman, at least what you've seen so far.
I don't hate Batwoman the character. I just am not.
You're not happy with the presentation so far,
right? Now.
Yeah. What do you think about her getting Batman's villains for this season? Do you think that makes her more interesting, or that feels like a shameless ploy to get more interest in the product?
I am pretty sure it's just a shameless ploy to get actual Batman fans invested in the show. I think, we're going to see a version of the Penguin, or a version of the Joker, or,
right.
Or X or Y variation of Batman villain.
Well, we're hearing that Tommy Elliott, a.k.a. Hush, will be in this, and I find that very intriguing. I think my biggest takeaway from this is that they've done this before. It's not like we haven't seen other shows go, oh, well, you're the villain that should be associated with Flash. Like Captain Boomerang was on Arrow of all things. Like they don't usually cross over with each other. So that sort of thing does happen. And I don't think it's terrible, but I also have to admit they're going into Batman's rogues because Batwoman doesn't have very many. So it kind of makes sense. Like if this is a world where Batman has gone away, Gotham is still going to be Gotham. Like he didn't shut down all of his villains. You know, the Joker, you can't keep that clown down. Not that we're going to see Joker by any means, because I'm sure they, just like Gotham, they put a lock on that character. But they're saying that Batman might actually return at some point, or at least Bruce Wayne will, to have an interaction with her. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that they can do with Batwoman to kind of almost make it like a backdoor pilot or even a backdoor entry to showing us Batman without actually giving us like his own show. Just kind of like how they did with Supergirl introducing Superman. Like I don't have a problem with them bringing in a non-title character that could exist in that world. I think it would actually work. I don't know. I'm still kind of on the outs with you. Like I feel like Batwoman might end up disappointing people, but the reviews from Comic-Con were very mixed. Like there are some insiders who were like, "Oh my God, it's shit. You shouldn't watch this. It's the worst thing from top to bottom. It's this, it's that." And from everything that I've seen in terms of like the presentation, like because there have been more trailers and things like that, you know, they're talking about the lighting's bad and this is bad and all this stuff. I'm not seeing that in the trailer. I could understand that maybe some of the direction and certain choices were a little, you know, preachy or a little off kilter for some people. And that would make sense. But, you know, when you're telling me that the camera work, the direction, the lighting, all that stuff is bad, I'm not seeing any signs of that. So when I hear people say that, I just kind of shut the wholehearted negativity about this series down. But I do have my concerns, much like you do. I think I'm just a smidge more optimistic that it might be at least halfway decent when we get it. So, like I said, I think when we talked about it last time, you know, the best thing to gauge this show's appeal and what really Warner Brothers will do at the end of the day is look at the ratings. You know, if the audience shows up for it, then they've done their job. If it doesn't, then, you know, it'll be one season and then we're done. I just want it to be something that makes people happy at the end of the day. So hopefully we get that, and we'll have to see how it goes. But I'm a little more excited hearing that some Batman villains are going to be in there, to be honest. So we'll see. Let's talk about some DC Universe here. So first of all, I don't know if you know about this, Brad. I don't know if we talked about it on the last episode, but Swamp Thing has officially been canceled.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we know that.
I think we did talk about that. So there is a petition going around, hashtag Save Swamp Thing. Even though the set has been struck and everything's been pulled off, it doesn't sound like they're going to save Swamp Thing per se, but there exists a possibility. And I think one of the best things that we got this week was the fact that both Swamp Thing and Doom Patrol have been nominated for Saturn Awards. So they're clearly doing something right with these programs on DC Universe. And if one of them ends up winning an award, I mean, I think that's a reason enough to bring a project back from the swamp or from the grave or however you want to put it. So do you think there's a situation that exists that will truly bring Swamp Thing back, or will we just never see it again?
Unfortunately, no.
Yeah, you just think it's done for good?
I think so.
Yeah. I mean,
it's dead in the water.
Yeah, it's there you go. That was a good one. I like that. But yeah, I don't want to see it go, but you know, it's going to be hard to replace something that has been as good as it has been. And I do get to see them a week earlier. Thank you, WB, for that. And I get to screen them, and they just impress me every single time I watch these episodes. I mean, what DC Universe is putting together is nothing short of fantastic. It just needs maybe a couple more shows in the course of a season to really create this giant universe that I would love to see. I also mentioned Doom Patrol, and with Doom Patrol, we did get an announcement during Comic-Con that we're getting a season 2. Woo! Are you excited for Doom Patrol to come back?
do need to see the first season.
I know. I was gonna say you haven't seen it yet. I'm gonna send you some of the stuff so you can watch it. I might even do that tonight now that I think about it. But yeah, Doom Patrol is coming back. So for someone who hasn't seen it, what has intrigued you about it the most so far?
The characters look weird as hell.
Coming from the X-Men, I think that's a compliment.
Yeah, it is.
Good. I'm venturing to say you're fascinated by characters of a either freakish or a diverse kind of variety.
Just kind of like bizarre characters.
Yeah, bizarre. That's a good word.
That's kind of why I like Ghost Rider.
Oh, yeah. We have been talking about Ghost Rider a lot lately. So, yeah, okay. That makes sense to me now. And also, if you guys want to hear some fun stuff on Ghost Rider, go and listen to our recently done episode of Underwear on the Outside where we just talk about Marvel's what ifs. We had a really good time just coming up with some random what if possibilities. Moving on with more DC Universe here, we have Harley Quinn getting her, I would say maybe first official trailer, but we did get like a little tease months ago, but we got one during Comic-Con. So we're getting that show. Have you seen this trailer or no?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I have not.
It is going to be crass. Like they've got a fantastic lineup of vocal talent, like people that you wouldn't expect to even be doing this sort of work because they're bigger names. But they're joining the series. It looks completely filled with Batman's catalog. Like even Kite Man has a line in the series. It's R-rated to the T. Like I heard something during Comic-Con that at one point they were having like 14 F-bombs per episode and they had to like cut it down to 7, something like that. Like it's so over the top fun and yet raunchy that they literally had to like tone it down just a little bit just to meet certain, like TV standards. So
gotcha.
I'm really intrigued by this. I mean, yeah, obviously for many of us, Tara Strong is our Harley Quinn through and through, who I met. She's super fantastic. But I kind of like Kaylee Cuoco. She's got the same kind of energy, maybe a little difference in vocals, but I think she's going to bring it. And it's a nice change for her. We were talking about John Cryer leaving kind of the CBS world behind and moving over to a project that's completely different for him. I think this is going to be something like that for her. And I'm really excited to see what she does with Harley Quinn. I think they've got like a 15 episode season, so it should be a good time when it premieres in the fall. Interestingly enough, no Stargirl mentioned during DC Universe, their panel that they did. Do you think there's any cause for concern that we're not hearing anything about Stargirl?
No.
I didn't think so either. I wanted to just put it to you because I know that you're not as like into the universe so far as, maybe like myself. But yeah, I don't really get that vibe. Like they've been putting it together. We've seen behind the scenes set photos. So I think Stargirl is doing fine. Lastly, we've got an announcement that Young Justice has been renewed for a season 4. I could not be more excited about that. What is your thoughts on Young Justice? Have you watched any of the seasons? No, it would never really appealed to you, even when it was on Cartoon Network or anything.
Mm-mm.
Okay, that's another one. It's all in the universe anyway, so you can just watch it at some point. But man, good show. They've done a really great job this year. Not only including more diverse characters, but really some awesome ones. There's a character like I don't want to get too into details with it, but like he's like a full blown elemental. And then his sister, who you probably remember from some of the Teen Titans episodes, she's basically like Magneto, but she moves the earth.
Oh,
yeah, she's awesome. So there's some really good stuff that I think once you get to watch it, you're going to really get into the series. But yeah, I'm just glad Young Justice Season 4 is back. Big shout out to the Cyborg on the show. We're going to actually have him on a future episode. I'm just a big fan of Zeno Robinson. I feel like he's an up-and-coming young voice actor and real-life actor, too, who has a big future ahead of him, and I can't wait to talk to him on our show in the future. So, yeah, Young Justice, all in motion there. So, last thing on the TV side is over with HBO. We got to see a trailer for Watchmen. Did you watch this one, Brad?
They put a new one out?
Yeah. It was the one during Comic-Con.
Oh, did not see the Comic-Con
Man,
one.
you were missing all the DC stuff, man. I know that you were up with your family over the last weekend, so I'll give you a pass on this one. But anyways, we got a reveal of like Dr. Manhattan and some of these other characters. It really does feel like they're bringing the past Watchmen forward, because I feel like that was one of our biggest concerns when you watch the first trailer, that it was just like, okay, Ozymandias is in here, but what's going on with the rest of this world? Like it didn't feel like a lot of it made sense. And you kind of understand that there's more of a militia aspect, kind of doing shades of like a KKK white nationalism perspective, and the opposition that brings to the world. But then they also introduce like Regina King's character. I want to say it's Sister Knight or something like that. I might have got that name wrong. But she's going to be a new introduction. They actually show, if you remember from the comic and the movie, the character Hooded Justice.
Yes.
He had like the rope around his neck. Very weird and interesting character. But like when I saw that in the trailer, I was like, really? They went with that one of all the old Minutemen characters. But I'm really excited to see what they do with this series. They show Dr. Manhattan's in it. We have some insiders who have been telling us that he might actually be Yahya Abdul-Mateen's character, who you'll know as Black Manta from Aquaman. Yeah, so he's in it. They don't really show that like he actually becomes that, but he's very like he's got like a stoic presence, for lack of a better word, in the trailer.
Okay.
So there's this rumor, I would say, to put it simply, that he could end up turning out to be Dr. Manhattan. I think it's actually Louis Gossett Jr.'s character, who's this kind of like old stationary African-American gentleman who sits in a wheelchair and just kind of like gazes out at the world. I think that almost makes more sense to me as like a character who's been in hiding, who's been dormant and just watching the world for so long. And then he's going to like reveal himself when the time is right. But very cool trailer. I'm a lot more excited than I was before. They had my interest and now they have my attention. So very excited for Watchmen. So that's really it on the TV side. I do want to mention, for anyone who has not already heard about it, even though the reports were that DC Universe was going to get folded into whatever Warner Brothers' next big streaming service was going to be, that is not the case. It sounds like we're getting HBO Max is what they're going to call it. So you've got your Disney Plus on one side, you've got your HBO Max on the other. Those are probably going to be your two big juggernaut streaming services. Especially after today, I heard that Netflix in one day lost $27 million or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, their stock is taking a real hit because the big companies are taking it on themselves now. And HBO Max is going to be Warner Brothers. So you're going to get your TNT, TBS, from what I'm hearing. You're going to get CBS. You're going to get the movies. You're going to get DC Universe, which is not actually going to be folded into it, but it's going to air the same content if you guys want that. So a lot of the same stuff, after I talked with Warner Brothers president last year, sounds like it's coming into fruition. I was not expecting it to be called HBO Max, I'll be honest, but this is a very cool reveal. Do you think you're going to sign up for HBO Max when it comes out?
Probably not.
How are you on streaming services? Do you feel like you're going to get more in the future, or you're going to just stick to certain ones?
I mean, I don't really have a reason to. I already have Amazon Prime.
I know, it's a great one.
There's a lot of stuff on there I haven't watched yet. And then there's Netflix that I still kind of periodically watch. So.
Okay, so Netflix and Amazon are still your go-to?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to Disney Plus yourself?
Probably not.
Really? Okay, I did not see that one coming. All right. So then let's get on to the stuff away from TV here. Not a whole heck of a lot, but we do have, I guess you could kind of call it TV, but it's the animated films. They did announce at Comic-Con at our number 3 here that we're going to get Man of Tomorrow, Red Sun, Justice League Dark, Apocalypse War, and Wonder Woman Bloodlines. We got an image of Bloodlines, which will have Rosario Dawson reprising her role in Wonder Woman. what do you think about these 4 animated projects? Which ones pop out to you the most? And is there anyone that you really don't give a care about?
I mean, I don't really care about any of them.
Because it's DC, right?
I mean, DC's animated stuff is more so better than, I guess, the live version of their movies.
Ouch. All right. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. I mean, that's
you can
fair.
talk. I could probably ask a bunch of DC fans and like, oh yeah, the animated stuff is much better than.
I think a lot of them would
action.
agree with you. Yeah. I mean, that's fair. But yeah, so even though you think the animated are better, you're not feeling any of these 4?
Not particularly, no. I'm not really big fans of either of them.
That's fair. So what was the last animated one that really kind of spoke to you? Like, if you could have another animated one, what would you like to see them make?
A DC animated movie?
Yeah, totally.
I can't even tell you the last animated DC movie I've seen.
All right, that's fine. No worries. Okay. I mean, for me, it's seeing Red Sun done right. I want to see an animated version of that. Man of Tomorrow is something I wanted them to do in live action, especially coming off of Man of Steel. And then Justice League Dark was good. I'm curious to see how their dark characters take on Apocalypse and Darkseid and all that stuff. So that'll be interesting to say the least. As we move on here, a little bit with film and not too much, to be honest, because again, there was no presence at San Diego Comic-Con. So Henry Cavill seems like, even though he was promoting The Witcher and all that stuff, that he still might be interested in being Superman. It just sounds like, according to a report that we got earlier today from outside source, during Comic-Con, I guess he spoke with somebody just on a 1-to-1 scaling. It was like, they just didn't have anything in the cards for me. So I went on to do Witcher, and that was that. So if that's the whole truth, we don't know. But I mean, that feels like maybe just they looked at Justice League and were like, we just need to go with what is working right now. So maybe they thought that Superman was more part of the problem. So we might not get Superman for a while, as much as that sucks. But he's ready to go whenever they're ready to have him, it sounds like. So it's not that there's any bad blood between them, at least not on the Henry Cavill side. So last bit is that we got a little bit of news from Batman. It looks like they're putting the cast together. I mean, obviously we know that Robert Pattinson is going to be a part of it. And now we're going to get the cinematographer from Rogue One, Greg Fraser, be the cinematographer of this movie. Are you excited for the Batman when it finally comes out, or no?
I'm just really interested to see where they take I guess, is this going to be an origin Batman?
No, it's a little bit experience, but it's kind of going to be, him still in his early days, but he's already kind of gone through his origin and everything from everything that we've heard. Okay. So he's going to be in the thick of it. I mean, they keep saying it's going to be like in Arkham and all that stuff, which I don't see that being a thing that you could really do a trilogy out of. So I think it's going to be a little bit more than just in Arkham, even if it would be for the first movie. So, it's him still starting off, kind of getting his bearings, but it's not going to be an origin retelling again, which is good. Okay. So I think that's really it on the DC side. I think really the stuff to be looking forward to right now. I mean, we know Wonder Woman's still coming. Aquaman is, he's definitely getting another sequel, and there's more to come for sure. But I think it's time to move on to either Marvel or miscellaneous. What would you say, Brad?
I'd say miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous it is. Okay, so let's run through some trailers here. We had a whole lot. So I think just because there's so many of them, and we got to keep this thing moving. Exactly. So for trailers, we had Jay and Silent Bob reboot. Yay or nay?
Yay. Looks hilarious.
I think so too. And we're getting Ben Affleck finally getting back with
yes.
Kevin Smith, which I feel good about that. It's nice to see him, just back together with his buddy. And Ben Affleck is joined by Matt Damon in the movie too at some point. So maybe a bit of a Dogma thing, but who knows? Moving on, we've also got Cats. This one I just have to talk about with you, even if it's for a little bit longer than we planned. Have you seen this trailer?
It looks like a furry fantasy on LSD.
That might be one of my favorite descriptions about it. It just looks
It is,
so bad.
It's creepy. The Uncanny Valley is beyond the Broadway show ever could pull off.
Yeah, like, and see, this is the thing that I told Amanda, because Amanda's a cat person. I actually was going into this with an open mind, thinking like it's going to be like a biopic mixed with like, you know, that Tom Cruise movie Rock of Ages, where it's going to have like some sort of a realistic feel to it, where or like they took the stage and then they just put it up on the screen. And it's not that. I think the biggest problem with this, yes, the CGI is god awful, and maybe it will get better when we get towards the movie, because obviously post production will improve it. But again, the problem is
not that much.
Oh, I know exactly. And this is my whole thing. There's so much uncanny valley with this that it just is unsettling. Like, I think what made Cats on stage work was because it was like, oh, they're humans kind of playfully acting like cats, but they've done such a weird job with this. It's like cats that have a little bit of humanity to them, and it really comes off in a creepy way. Like, I don't know. It'd be like if you like cut out a magazine face of like a celebrity and just slapped it on your cat and had them walk around your apartment all day. Like, that's kind of the vibe I'm getting from it. It's just really unsettling. And I think that's part of the problem with it. Like, if they had decided to go, you know, we're going to make them look more human, we're not going to really CGI this thing, and it's a man in a costume just kind of pouncing through the streets, it probably would be okay.
I think the main problem is the faces.
Oh yeah,
it
definitely
people
is.
Faces. They're not cat faces.
Yeah, and it's the fact that they made them so cat-like, but at the same time they're walking on two legs the whole time, and I'm like, this is really weird. I don't get it. So I just had to bring that up. I think we're both in the nay column on that one.
Yeah, that's a hard pass.
Have you seen the trailer for Westworld season 3?
No.
Tease with Aaron Paul. We get Thaddeus Newton. A lot of the stuff that we love about the series, and then some new stuff. I'm really curious to see how they go with it beyond the walls of Westworld. I mean, for me, I think what's more interesting is going into all the different sectors, you know, because there's like the Roman world, and then there's future world and all that stuff that they kind of touched on in the movies. But I wanted to see more of that, but I think the feeling is that there was some sameness with season 2. So this is going to put in fresh territory. I'm excited to see what they do with it, because of course, you know, robots are going to run amok and shit's going to go down. So it'll be a fun time. I'm really excited for season 3, and I don't think Aaron Paul would have jumped onto another project like this if he didn't see a good script in front of him. So, it definitely gets a yay from me. Next up, we have Maverick, the Top Gun sequel. What do you think about this trailer?
Looks decent. Doesn't really show off a whole lot.
You giving it a yay or an A?
I would give it a yay, yes.
I'm giving it a yay too, and for a reason that I haven't heard many people talk about. I feel like it looks and feels like a spiritual successor to the first movie. Like the way it's shot, like the low setting sunset, and just the camera angles and the character interactions. Like they even kind of like allude to the volleyball scene a little bit and all that stuff too. I'm like, you know, for all of it's odd little things that are in it and maybe don't hold up for today's standards or whatever. Like, there's something genuinely unique about how that movie was done and the period it was in, and the idea of capturing that spirit and continuing it on, I think, is what intrigues me the most about it. So it gets a yay from me. I have no idea if the plot's going to be good, interesting, or even worth, you know, my $10, but I just want to see it now at this point. Also, I know some of the people that I worked on Devs, the show that's I'm a part of. They went on to do Maverick as soon as they were done filming our show for FX. So I want to see what they put together, because they were talking a lot about how great Tom Cruise was and all that. So I think we're both in the yay column on that one. Let's move on to one that we might have some contention on, Terminator Dark Fate. How do you feel about this one?
Right now, Nay.
Okay, I can feel that nay. I'm a bit more yay than I thought I was gonna be, but ultimately I'm just feeling nay. Like this trailer, it's kind of like behind the scenes plus trailer, if that makes sense. And I like that they gave that to me, and it definitely feels like the action's been amped up, and I love that. But at the same time, you and I talked about this off air. The idea that you just amp up the action doesn't sell the movie more to me. The idea that Terminator was this weird kind of unsettling sci-fi future that could maybe happen was always something to me that made it more appealing. Like the idea that, obviously time travel is like this, ridiculous concept, but once you get beyond that, there's this very unsettling thing that you have to deal with. Like I felt like Terminator could be a real thing. T2 gets a little bit more ridiculous, and then by 3 it's just bonkers and we just go off the rails with it. But when it makes it feel real, that's when I think it's at its best. And I don't get that from this trailer. Like you've got two giant airplanes smashing into each other while someone's, I think it was one of the Terminators or one of the main characters is hanging on for dear life. And I'm just like, this is just a bunch of CGI nonsense. And like, I don't even really understand what the plot is from what I'm seeing here. I mean, what is your take?
It's just female Terminator human hybrid that's there to protect John Connor or whoever this girl is.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel like it has much of a story to it. I mean,
like the CGI in the trailer is pretty bad.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that they're bringing back Edward Furlong is cool. I like the idea that because of the whole James Cameron thing that they're like, okay, we're going to bring back some of the people you love, but much like another one we're about to talk about in a second here, Halloween, I don't want you to just bring back nostalgic characters just so you can run a series into the ground. Like,
I think those two movies are a bad idea.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, we'll get to that because there was no trailer. Well, there was a little teaser of that. So yeah, let's just bring up Halloween right here. So Halloween teases that there's going to be Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. Halloween Kills is coming on October 16th, and on October 15th, the following year. So we've got back-to-back movies. 2020 and 2021 for both of these films. So what do you think about Halloween extending itself?
Why?
Yeah, pretty much. That's where I'm at too. I mean, honestly, as much as I love Jamie Lee Curtis, I think she, no matter how old she gets, she can do no wrong. But at the same time, she should have died in that movie. Like, it would have been really cool if, like, her and Michael had, like, that poetic, like, they like, stab each other at the same time, and then they're just done. Or something where they both kind of, like, have, like, this graceful death where they both kind of bow out, and then, like, the series ends once and for all. Because there have been a lot of movies, and you can retcon away all the other stuff in between that wasn't their stories and whatever. But now you've gone and extended it to the point where you've got like 6 movies with her now. And it's just like, why are you doing this? It's just making the whole thing more complicated. It's stretching out what made this special, bringing her back, and it's making it worse. I know, I got a Halloween poster at last year's Comic-Con by Bill Sienkiewicz, and it's great. And actually, I got to send it over to our friends over at Epic Film guys, because they're big horror junkies, but like they're super excited about it. And maybe I'm not part of that particular audience that's excited about this, but I just feel like they're running this thing into the ground. And I feel like you're in the same boat with me on this one, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll see how it is. Maybe they do something special that, makes people go, oh, this is worthwhile because XYZ. But my biggest concern is that this won't be the end of it. Like, if the next 2 movies make enough money, they will kill off Laurie Strode like they planned on. But then you know what's going to happen? Her kid is going to take over and have to fight Michael Myers. And that's the last thing I want, is to just keep this thing going like in this never-ending circle. So we'll see. But that's happening. Let's see. Another trailer that we have to bring up here have you seen the Mr. Rogers trailer for A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood?
I saw parts of it.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about something a little lighter than Halloween for a second. And I think it's really sweet. It's endearing. It's a nice look into the life of the man that not many people knew, like behind the scenes. The only thing that I feel is, like maybe I'm not going to go out and see it in the theaters is the fact that it doesn't feel like there's much of a torment or personal struggle that he has to deal with. It's just very much like this guy was just great, and this is how he touched all the lives of so many people, which I kind of feel like I know that. So I'm giving it a nay, but only because I think that I don't need to see it in theaters. But I do think it's a yay in terms of the fact that I think it's just going to be a solid movie. Where are you with it?
It's going to be less scary.
Yeah, much less scary.
I mean, I actually want to go see Mr. Rogers in the biopic.
Okay.
I think it's going to be pretty good.
Cool. I'm glad that works for you then, because it deserves to get the money that it gets, because Tom Hanks is fantastic. Like you can see him just become that character, and I should say, that person for that matter, because he's more than just a character on TV. Mr. Rogers was a real human being that meant a lot to a lot of people. Moving on, we had the Witcher trailer, which I know you got to see it last night. What did you think about The Witcher?
It actually looks pretty cool.
I agree. And like him at the very end, just about to take on that giant ass spider. Like I haven't been so excited about a spider fight since probably like Lord of the Rings. So I'm really digging this. Like there's a lot of cool shots in this. I mean, I know very little about it because I did not play the games. I think you said you didn't play them either, right?
Actually, yeah, I never played them.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't think this is one of those things where you have to follow the series, because from my understanding, because there's books too, but the character of Geralt, he is much older, so this is kind of like earlier days anyways, and I'm sure they're going to get around to more of the stuff from the books anyways, but I like what I'm seeing. Like this is giving me kind of like my new Lord of the Rings vibe, my new Game of Thrones vibe, like that kind of like medieval times, crazy shit is going down, magic, big monsters, all that, and then it looks like it's going to be a good time, and we're going to get that sooner than later here, so looking forward to that one. I should mention this one because we got a little bit of a teaser with this. Do you know anything about this DuckTales universe that they're doing over with Disney?
No.
Okay, so long story short, Disney's DuckTales has been doing fantastic. Like great cool cast that they put together. Like all-star talent just to do DuckTales of all things. And it's been doing so well that they're trying to bring in like the bigger Disney universe. So now they're trying to include like Darkwing Duck. They're putting Goofy in it. Like they're putting, Launchpad, McQuack, and all of those like really kind of like out there characters that you haven't probably seen, like Chip and Dale since the 90s.
Robo-Duck?
Yeah, that sort of thing. So they're really like throwing everything into it. So you know how like there's a Smash Brothers poster on the video game side where like all the characters are kind of like descending from the heavens?
Really?
Yeah, so there's that. But basically like the DuckTales have something similar to that where it's like all the different Disney characters are just kind of coming down to like join them for whatever their adventure is going to be. And they're not all going to show up in like one episode is my understanding. But for someone who's only seen a couple episodes of it and liked it, I actually kind of want to see it even more now because like it shows that not only is it working and that they put something great together, but that they care about it so much that they want to make it something even bigger than what it already was. And I'm totally sold on this. Do you think you'll ever get around to watching this one though?
Probably not.
I didn't think so. That's all right. So in the next couple days here, another trailer that we just got was for The Boys Season 2. And Mr. Amazon Prime, as you mentioned earlier, how excited are you to see The Boys when it comes out?
I actually do want to see this show.
I knew you would. Is it like a must-watch day one for you, or do you still have some reservations about it?
No, I'm pretty much going to try to watch it when it comes out.
Yeah, the hardest thing for... Oh, go ahead.
Honestly, it's kind of a mirror of Watchmen.
Yeah, I could kind of see that. Like the big man in charge kind of gets a little bit of a cocky head, and it's up to the kind of rebel group to bring him down. I can kind of see that tether that you're putting there, unless you mean it in a different way.
Just kind of the superheroes acting however they want, regardless of the public's opinion.
Oh, unchecked and all that. Okay, I'm with you. Yeah, okay, I see that. But yeah, we're gonna get on July 26th, so just a few more days here, and I can't wait for it. I think it's gonna be such a great show. I'm trying to think. Oh yeah. They also announced, and I should mention this, that there's a season 2 that's already been announced. So do you think that's a little preemptive of them, or do you think that shows that they have so much confidence in what they've already got that they're just ready to roll into season 2?
Well, self-confidence, feedback from, test screens and whatnot. So
Okay. And then I'm trying to see if we missed any of the trailers here, because I think we covered all of them. I do want to cover one last thing before we get into what's coming up. We've got a a Lion King movie that's coming out here, that's come out here, and it's not doing so well. Box office wise, it's hitting about average where they expected it to, but the reviews have been really bad. How have you been feeling about the Lion King? Do you feel like you're going to end up watching it? I don't even know if we should do a review on it at this point.
No, I have no plans to watch any of the live action remakes.
Yeah, like I really enjoyed Dumbo for what it was. Like it actually was different than what I expected it to be, and I think that's what made that such an interesting movie. And Aladdin was fantastic, but Lion King, people are just really not loving it, and I don't know really what that problem is per se, but yeah, I'm just a little concerned that it won't get as much money as they thought it was going to. Like people were saying, oh, this movie's going to make $1 billion. And it looks like Aladdin's going to be the one to do that for Disney. So I'm a little worried about what they do with these live action movies going forward. We'll have to wait and see. So let's talk about what's coming up in the near future here at the number 2 talk. We know now that Archer is getting a season 11. Yay or nay?
Yay.
Ben Affleck and Matt Damon are joining Ridley Scott for a movie set in the 14th century called The Last Duel. Yay or nay?
Yay.
I agree. We're going to get more Mad Max movies with Mad Max and potentially with Furiosa too. Yay or nay?
I'm going to say yay for now.
Okay, me too. I mean, they could turn out poorly. Furiosa had such a positive response from everybody. They want to see where she goes. I kind of agree. I mean, I want them to, and I say this with all due respect, obviously, but get Charlize Theron while she's, very active and, still kicking ass, because, I mean, she's no spring chicken, and neither is Tom Hardy either. I mean, like, they're not going to be action movie stars for forever. So you got to get in there and get these guys on camera because, time passes us all by, unfortunately. So I really want to see them kick these things in a high gear, some pun intended there, and just get these movies done. Because George Miller has these great ideas for them, and I don't know what's holding up this process, but I really want to see at least one more Mad Max movie from him. Other things that are coming down the pipeline here. Michonne is leaving The Walking Dead, but they've decided that they're going to add in 3 more movies about Rick, which is cool. I'm actually kind of excited for the Rick movies, but
Did you say movie?
Yeah, Rick Grimes is going to get 3 movies, according to the producers of The Walking Dead. I think it was Gail Ann Hurd who said that.
Ooh, I think that is beating a dead horse right there.
See, okay, yes, and I'm with you on that. The idea that you would bring someone like him back, like my understanding is he kind of like went off into the sunset and like that was that or whatever, or maybe he died. I fell off a little bit before that happened, unfortunately, so I had heard it secondhand through my Walking Dead encyclopedia that is Amanda. But that being said, though, if they put him into a movie format and it's not bad, I could see them doing 2 more. But my biggest problem is the fact that they want to do 3 is what they're saying, and they want to put them all in theaters. I'm like, that's the kind of putting the universe out there before you've seen if it works kind of mentality that like the Dark Universe failed to do. You're like, I don't want to hear about 3 Mummy movies if you can't get the first one right, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we'll see. Like, maybe the Walking Dead has a really bad next season. They're like, okay, we just need to scrap this universe. We're done with it. And then we never get the movie in the first place. But they seem like they're all on board for it, and they want to keep trying to do Walking Dead spinoffs. And I think one of the shows is going to come to a close pretty soon. There's a lot of moving parts with this franchise right now, and losing Michonne is, in my opinion, not something that's going to help them by any means. So yeah, it's a rough situation, and we'll definitely keep you guys posted as it develops, but I'm a little concerned. But I think at this point, if they did one movie about Rick and like what his journey was, you know, after he leaves the group, I'd be intrigued enough to go and see it. But, you know, if it's just a TV show that's put into a movie format, I don't know if I'd pay for it. But that is Walking Dead setup for now. We also have some news, and I think it's the last of our what's to come stuff. Rick and Morty, we finally got a little clip from the new season. They've given them an order for like 70 more episodes, so it seems like we're going to have Rick and Morty for like another 5 to 7 more seasons at this point. Did you get to at least see the clip?
No, I don't pay attention to Rick and Morty.
Oh, you're not even a fan?
Nah.
Oh, okay. I didn't. We never really talk about Rick and Morty, honestly, but it's
because I've never seen it.
You should. It's actually more engaging than you'd think. It's surprisingly smart sci-fi mixed in with a lot of dumb, almost Beavis and Butthead like humor. And it's weird how they blend the two styles together by being smart and almost drunkenly stupid in some points. But I really love the series, and I'm glad to see it back. Amanda and I are big fans, and I really can't wait to see what season 4 is going to bring, because it sounds like they've got some great talent already lined up. The voiceover cast that they get for this show is phenomenal. I don't know how they do it. Maybe the creator is slipping them something or whatever, but man, they are just always great episodes, and I love the series. So a lot to look forward to with Rick and Morty. Can't wait to see what happens in season 4. So I think that's it for our 2 talk here. At number 1, I just want to bring up one of the biggest things that came out of Comic-Con was Star Trek is not only getting a season 3 for their TV series on CBS All Access, but we're also getting a new series from them, which is called Picard. Have you seen this trailer?
No.
Okay.
I have heard a little bit about it, though.
So what have you heard so far?
Very tumultuous production schedule.
Okay, I had not heard that, but keep going.
And also, supposedly, the entire idea of the script was stolen from somebody else.
Oh, really? Okay, see, that's a story I had not had here. So that's intriguing. But what we see in the trailer is what actually had me engaged with the whole thing. Because at first I was like, oh, you're bringing, we just talked about this. Like,
you're bringing in a loved character because your Star Trek Discovery show sucks.
See, and that's another thing. I keep hearing people say that they love it, and then recently I've been hearing people say that it sucks. So it has a very divided audience where some people just really love the crap out of it, and then other people are just like, what is this? I don't like this at all. So it's very interesting to hear you say that too, because I hear more good things than bad, but I haven't watched it myself to make an honest opinion. From what I've seen, it looks intriguing. I think I might even like it more than the J.J. Abrams style. But then again, I have to actually watch it so I can have that opinion. That being said, though, I think what got me the most with Picard that I wasn't expecting was the fact that they dipped in and they got everybody. They've got people from Deep Space Nine. They've got people from the Next Generation. I think that they have 1 or 2 from Voyager that is popping in on this thing, because they all in some way have interacted with Picard. So basically, it seems like from the trailer that he had this very kind of sedentary, relaxed life, and he just kind of gets thrust back into it because he's kind of not feeling it, so to speak. And
it's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So he's kind of tired of this sedentary lifestyle. He gets thrust back into it, reunites with all of his, former cast and cast members from other shows. I don't know. Maybe it's just the nostalgia filter working for me, but like I want to see more from Patrick Stewart and I want to see more from the Next Generation cast because they were some of my favorites, and that was of all the Trek content that's been put out over the years, they were the most interesting.
You know, this reminds me of.
Go for it.
It reminds me of Galaxy Quest, just none of humor.
Yes. Yeah. Well, there is some humor too. The trailer.
Well, no, it's okay. So basically, it's Galaxy Quest is a TV show about space travel, but then they actually do space travel. Well, now it just seems like it's a show about people that do the space traveling that don't really want to space travel anymore.
Yeah, in some respects. I mean, like everyone who was on the old shows, they're still in like their old status and old positions. Maybe they went up a rank or two or something like that.
How did that happen?
What do you mean?
That's not realistic.
What do you mean?
Their ranks would change.
That's what I said. I think they went up like a rank or two.
How?
Why wouldn't they?
Have they still been in active service?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
That's kind of lame.
Because the only one who retired was Picard. And then Data was disassembled or whatever. And then I
haven't seen any other main characters then from the Next Generation.
What do you mean? Mm-hmm. Huh? Say it again.
Why haven't we seen any of the original characters
from
the Next
Generation? Because they weren't the leaders of the ship. Characters. Like Picard was the dude that kept everything together. He was the focal point. I mean, yeah, they could have made a Will Riker spinoff, but I don't know that everyone would have paid to see that per se. They went on to make Voyager, they went on to make Deep Space Nine, and that's the direction that they decided to go in, because once you lose a big member, kind of like Rick was for The Walking Dead, for example, your show kind of does fall apart a little bit. Like the audience doesn't really show up. So, I mean, they ended the Next Generation perfectly, like at least as far as I can remember. Like they had a really great run with that series. The other two that followed it, not so much. I would actually
Deep Space Nine was pretty good.
Was it? I never really got into it. Okay. I mean, I'll take that as an endorsement. I can work with that. The thing that I was thinking about was Star Trek Enterprise, the one that had like Scott Bakula on it. I like Scott Bakula. I just want to see him make a cameo on the series, even if he's like old man Scott Bakula, because I think
he is old man Scott Bakula.
Well, I know. He's gotten older. I'm just saying, like, they kind of have to age him up even a little bit more, because I think they're supposed to predate the Starfleet or Star Trek, whatever, the Next Generation, that the Enterprise.
Correct.
So, yeah, he would technically have to be older than Patrick Stewart, but either way, I would still like to see them have an interaction, because I don't know, I'm a big Scott Bakula fan. What can I say? So are you excited for anything coming up from Star Trek? Because I mean, we also know that Star Trek is also going to have a movie that's done by Tarantino. That's the one I'm giving my big thumbs down to. But I don't know. What's your take on Star Trek right now?
I'm actually waiting for Tarantino's take.
Really? He's like, man, I'm going to drop so many F-bombs. It's going to be edgy and cool, and it's all this stuff.
Yeah, that's just Tarantino being edgy in the interview.
I mean, he always does that, and he always says it's going to be like his last movie and all that stuff. And then he was like telling off Simon Pegg this week, like, oh, what does Simon Pegg know about my movies and about Star Trek? I know what, like it felt very like him and James Cameron to me. Like I'm excited when their movies come out, but when they get all preachy about how this is better than whatever thing that's out there, like have some humility. That's my only problem with these guys.
You gotta give Tarantino a break. He's got like 155 IQ, so he's not very.
I did not know that, honestly.
People, yeah.
Okay, I mean
he's not the most sociably sound.
He is an engaging personality who puts together great films, and I will say that the same way about James Cameron. Everything beyond that, I don't know, it gets a little dicier. The water gets a little muddier, but they are both interesting people, and I'm curious to see how he does with Star Trek, because everything that he said about Star Trek does not sound like anything I've ever seen from Star Trek. So it could be a good thing, or it might turn out to be like, the reception that Batman v Superman and Man of Steel got, where it's like, holy crap, you made this super dark. Why did you do this? This is terrible. Stop this now. And I guess we'll have to just wait and see how that turns out, but we'll keep you guys posted. I'm saying yay to Picard, maybe on Star Trek season 3. And then just a big no on the Star Trek reboot as of now. I mean, all of those could literally change in a matter of just a single viewing, but I think we'll leave it right there. And no Star Wars news this week, unfortunately, so that's why we slotted in Star Trek. Are you ready to move on to Marvel, Brad?
Yes.
Okay, so real quick, there is just not a lot for Marvel TV stuff. I know we mentioned the fact that they're in rumor mill, could be like that crossover, but at the number 3 here with TV, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. sounds like they're ending now on season 7. That is Brad clapping in the background.
That literally is me clapping.
So is that you saying it's about time, basically?
It's about time.
Yeah, it really is. And again, I cannot stress this enough, because I get this at least like once a week or at least once a month from somebody who loves Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I don't have a problem with the fact that it exists. I just have a fact that have a opposition to the fact that they've went on for so long, and it just doesn't feel like it's really going anywhere. Like,
it's amazing that they made Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. go 7 seasons, and yet to do a sort of one-off series of the Inhumans and make it look like a cheap sci-fi knockoff of Game of Thrones is kind of insulting.
Yeah, it really is. And, well, I mean, I think part of that is the team that was working on that was not the same team working on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't.
And the fact that if you look at the way that was put together, they tried to put a lot of big things in there that were costly, but they didn't do it with the cost.
CGI was probably a big one.
Exactly. That's I think one of the biggest problems that happened with that Inhuman show. Like, if they had kept it looking like something that was on Arrow or, I don't know, Flash or one of those shows, or even the way Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. decides to hide the problems that they have because of their small budget, they could have made it look good by hiding the problems. Instead, they were just like, we're going to shoot it in the daytime. We're going to make it feel big, but we only have a small budget, so we're going to have to do the best we can with shit. And it showed the problems. And I think, despite the fact that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Arrow, all these shows have issues, like they'll either cover in darkness or they'll kind of condense it. They won't do big outdoor shots. They'll do small interior shots that make it feel like, maybe not necessarily like you're in a warehouse, but it feels like you're in a real setting. It's just a smaller setting because that's what their production budget can allow. And I think that's what's a testament to what they do right. The problem is someone didn't give that memo to the Inhumans. They thought, we'll put it in theaters and we'll put it in the daylight and it'll be this big budget thing and it'll look great, and it looks like shit.
I just think the style of the show overall was just kind of really underwhelming.
Yeah, and that's the truth too, because like obviously I watched it. Like I didn't go to the theater. I was very tempted to actually go to a physical theater and just watch it, just out of pure speculation to see if that would like pull me in. And I didn't, mostly because a friend of the show, John Schnepp, before he passed, he was telling me, he's like, no, I've seen this in advance. You do not want to check this out. And I'm like, okay, yeah, no, I won't then. But I kind of like some of the character dynamics. And Karnak on the show, I forget the actor. I think his first name is Ken. He was the porcupine dude in X3, if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was a great Karnak, and I would love to have seen him in live action play that character. And maybe when he signed on, that was what it was supposed to be. But everything beyond that, and well, Crystal wasn't too bad. The actress that they got to play her wasn't terrible. But then some of the weird choices that they made with Medusa, where she had that really shitty looking wig, and sometimes it was CGI, sometimes it wasn't, and the CGI was already bad. Like, it was just a recipe for disaster with that. But so back on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. though, I just wanted it to be good. And I just felt like they strung it out for so long, and then they put it in space. They kept doing the thing where it's, oh, well, it's connected. Oh, it's not connected. Oh, it's connected again, and now it's just not. And they're doing space adventures. They're traveling in and out of the future, and I don't even know what it is anymore, to be honest. Like, I keep watching it because I'm a glutton for punishment, apparently, but I just don't get what the show is all about anymore, and that's the sad truth.
It's knocking off Heroes of Tomorrow.
Heroes of Tomorrow?
Or Legends of Tomorrow, sorry.
Oh, it's not like even Legends of Tomorrow. No, I shouldn't even say even. Like, I think the weakest entry, if I'm being honest, with DC's TV on the CW side is probably Black Lightning, and I say that mostly because it's unconnected, not because like the performances are bad or anything like that. It just feels like it's its own weird thing that's disconnected. Like, even if that's the weakest entry on the DC CW side of things, I still think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is worse than that. As much as I hate to say it, like, it just feels like nothing.
I would go back and watch Iron Fist season 1 over Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yes, exactly. I mean, yeah, the budget was better anyways, but it just felt like even Iron Fist season 1, for all that it was or wasn't to people, it had something more going for it. It was trying to at least say something. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is like, well, Coulson was dead, but now this other guy's back and he's kind of Coulson, but maybe he isn't. And it's like, if your intriguing storyline is the fact that is he or isn't he dead, it's not really that big of a deal. Like, Coulson is like the unofficial leader of S.H.I.E.L.D., but S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't actually exist because the way the MCU kind of killed off S.H.I.E.L.D. and all, like, it's very complicated where S.H.I.E.L.D. actually exists. And it's too much. It's going nowhere. And I just want it to go out peacefully and just be done. I think they just need to focus on heroes again. And like, the relationships on that show are great, but it's like, I don't really care anymore about the fact that Fitz and Simmons are having a kid that's in the future, and they meet the kid, and it's like, it's not like their kid went on to be a superhero or anything like that. Like, we're watching these shows because they have this level of superhero connectivity, and this show is the most devoid of superhero connections of anything I've seen so far. Like, I would almost watch, I don't know, between this and Cloak and Dagger, I don't know what's less appealing for me to watch, honestly.
Ooh.
And that's a hard sell, because at least Cloak and Dagger, you could argue it has some heroes in it, but they're just so unengaging that I don't know. Maybe I would lean a little bit more towards Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but that's how much lower each season kind of pushes the show down for me. Because after like season 3, I don't really know what they were trying to do. I almost feel like, because I heard that some of the people that worked on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. also worked with or had really close relations with the CW folks. I almost feel like they were trying to be in contention with Arrow for the longest time. Like, oh, come on, ABC, just keep us going one more season. If we can outlast Arrow, then that means we're doing something right. You know, I don't know if any of that's true, to be honest, but I just wonder why they've kept it for 7 seasons, because the ratings, like, if this was on even the CW, they probably would have canceled it. So, yeah.
Honestly, had they integrated the Inhumans in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it might have been better.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, well, let's move on to number 2, because I think we both are understandably off of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So we've got The Amazing Mary Jane is coming out as a comic book. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of Marvel stuff. They're redoing X-Men once again. I mean, that should be no surprise to anyone. Jonathan Hickman is working on it. That's cool. But I think Amazing Mary Jane is a very interesting one to talk about here for comics. Are you excited to see Mary Jane kind of step out into the light herself? It's not the first time we've seen this before. Lois Lane's got her own comic book, or Jimmy Olsen. Like, some of these more ancillary characters or sidekick characters get this. Do you think that this is a good step in the right direction for Mary Jane, or is she better as kind of like the number 2?
I mean, like, what's it even going to be about? Is it just going to be her Broadway career, her own point of view of
from everything that I'm seeing and hearing? It sounds like it's just going to be like her ground level experiences. Like imagine if, you know, you were the normal person and you lived with a superhero and, you know, they had their adventures going on around you. It's your ground level take on the world around you with all this stuff going on.
Sounds as bad as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, wow. Okay. See,
I mean, it just sounds like a diary. That's really all it sounds like.
Huh. That's an interesting way of putting it, because I wouldn't have looked at it through that lens. But yeah, now that you mention it, it's almost like, well, I don't want to be like Sex in the City with it, but like, you know,
that's just going to be a monologue over everything?
Yeah, or like, I'm just picturing like, Dear Diary, today I saw Electro. I don't think it'll... I don't think it's going to be that bad. I like the idea because we were talking about how Mary Jane has changed film-wise versus comics and all that stuff. To see this Mary Jane, not like MJ, the Michelle character from Far From Home and Homecoming, get her own is very intriguing. And it makes me wonder if this is them trying to go, oh, they're going to announce that Michelle is actually Mary Jane down the road, or if they're going to do something with Mary Jane in a big way. Because usually when a comic comes to an end, the film stuff usually goes away, or when they introduce a character into their own line, they, you know, push them into a bigger presence on the big screen. Whether this means anything for that or no, hard to say, but like, it just intrigues me. Like, why now? Why Mary Jane? Is it because we're finally deciding to put more diverse characters out there? Or is it because someone in Marvel's bullpen was like, hey, what about finally trying to give some of the ground level characters a little bit more say? I just think it's intriguing, whether it lasts for a year or for 5 years. I just want to see where this thing goes. And I'm guessing that the one I brought up earlier, the Marvel X-Men thing, that's more intriguing to you?
Oh, yeah, like Hickman stuff is actually really good.
See, it's weird. Like, talking about it, I'm actually more excited about Mary Jane because I'm so tired of them recycling the X-Men. Like, how many times can we go through like another year where they're just like, well, the team that you knew is disbanded, we're going to reboot them all over again. And that's where I'm just like, I don't know that I like, they're making, you know, for as much as the films did their own set of problems, like, you know, Wolverine Origins being as bad as it was, and, you know, people having their problems with Apocalypse or whatever. For as much as those movies did damage, I think the thing that does the most damage to the X-Men truly is the fact that they keep giving stories that I can't even follow anymore. Like, I don't know what the last big event that they had was. Like, I mean, I think the one that I read all the way through was House of M, and that was forever ago now.
I think the last thing they did, they killed off Cable.
See, and that, like, I had no idea about that, honestly, and that's because I can't follow them. Like, I was reading some of the new solicitations for what's coming in. They're doing Carnage series, and they're doing, I think, like another Venom series, and there's just too many characters getting all these different things. You can't keep track of what the continuity is for any of this stuff anymore, and that's pretty much why I've transitioned to the movies almost exclusively, and some of DC Comics on the Universe side, because you can just stream on your TV or on your phone runs of these comics. But I'm just to that point where, like, there's just so many titles, whether it's Gwenpool or you've got I don't know, well, I guess, yeah, Deadpool, or different branches of the X-Men. I can't even follow where things are at. Is this thing connected to that thing? Just where we're at as a whole. So, I mean, do you think Marvel needs to change their perspective on comics, or do you like what you're hearing, whether it's Amazing Mary Jane or the X-Men getting new stuff?
I think they're redoing the X-Men. I think they're sort of building up to how they get introduced in the MCU, possibly.
I really hope so, because that I could follow. Like, if there was like familiar shadowing or shades of what's to come, like they do the same thing with Fantastic Four, for example, and then it's like, hey, okay, so the Fantastic Four, these guys, maybe even their characterization in the comics are similar to them. I'd be all for that. But keep to that continuity. Don't do even like what Arrow was doing, because Arrow and Flash, they made comics for them when they were in the off season during the summer, and people would read them and like, they don't mention any of that in the show, and it's just like weird extra separate adventures, and then it starts to become disconnected, and I don't know. I lose track of all that stuff, to be honest. What I'm saying is I don't want it to get messy. They can do whatever the hell they want, just don't make it messy. Yeah. But yeah, you're for them kind of rebooting it then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. All right, and last thing, talk about some Marvel successes here. Spider-Man and Endgame, big blockbusters. We all know it. We all pretty much expected them to make $1 billion, and they have. Spider-Man has now crossed $1 billion with Far From Home, and Endgame has now beaten Avatar for the biggest box office in history, which is fantastic. Now, some people have pointed out with Avatar that due to inflation, it might still have a slight edge on Endgame, but Endgame has not ended its run yet, so hard to say. I think Spider-Man is pretty definitive. It's the highest grossing Spider-Man film of all time. As for Endgame, though, do you see a world where it gets beaten in the, let's just say, 4 to 5 years, or that Avatar comes back in like Avatar 2 and they re-release it and then it takes the top spot again? Do you think that that's a possibility?
Maybe. The only other time Marvel might get close to this is if they let the Russos do Secret Wars.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that.
But I don't know if that's actually in the cards or not. So, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I could see like Invasion being a thing with Skrulls and all that stuff. But yeah, it's going to be a while before we get to Secret Wars. So, yeah, I think Endgame's going to hold that spot for quite a while, to be honest.
Yeah.
I really could see, despite the fact that James Cameron's being a real sport about it, which despite my hang-ups about the guy, he's been very supportive, and so has like the whole Avatar team. They congratulated Endgame for cracking that top spot, and that's great. But I really feel like at some point they're going to have that greed going, and they're going to go, okay, we're going to re-release Avatar. I mean, if they make it 3D only, they'll probably, overtake the top spot. But, for now, I think Endgame's sitting pretty, and I that's really cool to see that we've come that far with comic book movies that they're like the highest grossing movie of all time, which I think that's just phenomenal. I wish it was DC, frankly, but it is what it is. I'll take a win when I can get it. So that is cool. Any other final thoughts on Marvel's future before we go into what the real future is, and that's Phase 4 in a big talk?
I've got nothing else.
Okay, well, we will go to a quick commercial break, and we will be right back to talk about Phase 4.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
This week's sponsor is Loot Crate. For less than $20 a month, Loot Crate gives the geek in you a special treat with each box. Loot Crate is a subscription box service with more than $40 worth of geek, gamer, pop culture gear, collectibles, apparel, etc. You'll have until the 19th at 9 p.m. Pacific to subscribe and receive this month's crate. And when the cutoff happens, that's it. It is over. So head to lootcrate.com/nerdrage and use the promo code NERDRAGE to get 10% off your crate today.
And now, on with the show.
Okay, and we're back. So I'm going to do a quick roundup of everything that happened during Phase 4 for the big talk, everything that happened at STCC, and just talk with Brett. Obviously, if you guys want to go into some of the other shows, we do talk about on our What If that we just did the other night, which is a great episode. I highly encourage you guys to listen to it because it's just a fun time we had. But first of all, let's just start off with Brad. What stood out the most to you from Phase 4 at San Diego Comic-Con?
I think besides Doctor Strange and the Madness of the Multiverse,
Yeah.
I think everything else is a brand new property, live action wise.
I mean, I guess that's a way to put it. I mean, like, we know that Falcon and the Winter Soldier have already existed. I mean, I guess you could argue that as a brand.
Only be on Disney Plus though, so
that's true. I was just talking about all of Phase 4, but yes, if you want to exclude the Disney Plus properties, that's fair too. So yeah, we do have. Well, yeah, and Loki is TV too. What If would be TV. Hawkeye's TV. Well, no, Thor. What about Thor? We got Thor as Thor: Love and Thunder.
Oh, that's right. That was at the tail end.
So there you go. And Black Widow too. Black Widow is not a old IP, or a brand new IP by any means.
Technically,
it is a solo.
It'll be the first solo one.
Okay. That's fair. So for those who don't know, just gonna run through it here. So we've got Eternals. We have Black Widow. We have Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. We have Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which will go on Disney+. We have WandaVision, which we talked about before. That one will also be TV. Loki, which will be his own TV show on Disney+. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness on the film side, like Brad was just talking about. A What If series from Marvel that will also be on TV. And then Hawkeye. I'm sorry. Well, we will have Hawkeye on the TV series with him and his daughter. And then I'm sorry. Did I say Black Widow already? I feel like I already did.
Yes, you did.
And lastly, it should be Thor: Love and Thunder. So that's cool to see. And then technically out of Phase 4, but it was also announced there, we're going to have Blade coming, played by Mahershala Ali. We're going to have the X-Men, Fantastic Four, which were all teased. We're going to get Black Panther 2, Captain Marvel 2. But I think, and you don't have to quote me on this one, but it sounds like we're going to get those sorts of reveals, or at least teases of those reveals at D23 this year. So Marvel has some more planned, and it sounds like it's going to be at least hinted at more so when D23 comes around in just a little bit here. So of those names that I suggest or just brought up here, which one stands out to you the most?
I would have said Shang-Chi. I think that's going to be a little bit smaller scale in terms of like the grand MCU expanse.
I had a feeling, Mr. Martial Arts. I figured you'd be all about that.
Doctor Strange sounds like it's going to be extremely exciting.
Yeah, like the weirdest thing about this entire list, I obviously love Doctor Strange. I thought it was a fantastic movie, but I didn't realize how excited I was going to be that they were just going to mention a Doctor Strange movie. Because if you remember from last week's episode, we didn't really bring up Doctor Strange at all. We talked Black Panther being one. You know what? I had number 2. We said Doctor Strange. Well, look at that. 3, we said Black Widow. 4, we said Eternals. 5 was Shang-Chi. Then you said Ghost Rider, I think. And then I said Fantastic Four or something like that. So those were our 7 at the time. So not entirely what we thought, but at least some of that stuff is coming to fruition. I mean, I had a feeling that we weren't going to get Ghost Rider, but I already told you that. So what do you think about Eternals? Just let's start with that one right now. What do you see that going positively for Marvel, or is that going to be a hiccup?
So.
Yeah,
I think so. They have a good cast. Story might be a little out there, but I think that the cast that they have is going to help overcome that.
Yeah, so this is an interesting thing. I was doing some of my reading up, and some of these runs I hadn't actually read through myself, but there is 2 particular runs based on different comic book entries that have happened over the years. With the Eternals, my understanding with them, because there's a lot of people who actually hit us up and were like, what is their deal? Like, I don't understand. Are they like the Celestials? How does that work? So they are essentially like the offspring of the Celestials, as my understanding. So there's them, and then like more monstrous deviations, which become the Deviants. And they've had like this warring faction between them for years. I don't know if that's super intriguing to me per se, if I'm being honest, but there were a couple runs that basically expressed the characters existed within our culture, right? So like Gilgamesh, who is going to be played by one of the actors, I'm trying to remember his name. He's a big deal overseas. Don Lee is his name. He's going to be Gilgamesh, and I guess at one point in the comics, he has a path to take out all of the other Eternals because of the orders that he was given by Ajax, who is seen as like a god to the Aztecs, which is cool, but I don't know if that's how they're going to play it out. I think the idea of having like, we've been amongst you for forever, you know, kind of like you'll never see us coming, that sort of thing. Almost like if Greek gods existed amongst us and had been awakened. That's kind of the idea that I'm getting from this series. So based on the cast that they put together, because everyone was wrong about Angelina Jolie. Like, I was kind of speculating that she might be Elysius. Almost everyone under the sun was going, oh, no, you're totally wrong. She's going to be Cersei and all that. I think that she's playing Athena is cool, because I think she's the daughter of like the head celestial or head eternal. Obviously, as you can tell, I'm not the biggest with this with the Eternals, but do you feel like this sort of concept is interesting to you? Do you want to see this play out?
I'm interested to see how it plays out. Yeah.
So, I mean, to put it simply, we've got Richard Madden playing Icarus. Kumail Nanjiani is Kingo, who, that one is an interesting one I want to bring up in a second here. Lauren Ridloff is playing Makari, also an interesting casting. Brian Tyree Henry as Fastos, which I think is awesome. He's great. Selma Hayek playing Ajax. Liam McHugh as Sprite, and Don Lee playing Gilgamesh, with Angelina Jolie obviously being Athena, like I said before. So, Richard Madden being Icarus seems pretty on the nose for what that character is. Kumail Nanjiani is playing a character who, despite all the things that I've read, is kind of all over the place, where he looks like a samurai character, but he also has some sort of like actor cred to him and is a bit of a jokester. So I guess it kind of fits for the kind of person that Kumail Nanjiani is, but the whole samurai thing with his, I think, Pakistani background that he has is a very weird thing. So maybe they'll just make him like a incognito actor who realizes that he has superpowers or something like that. I mean, what do you think about him playing that character?
I don't have an issue with it.
Okay. And then deciding to make, what's her name? Lauren Ridloff as Makari, who's basically like their version of the Flash. I think it's kind of interesting. And I love the fact that they added someone who is deaf, and, you know, they can add that level of diversity to their movies. They also announced that Valkyrie is officially LGBTQ herself. And I think that's great, because there should be that level of representation. But I did not see Makari not only being a female, but deaf as well. So very against what you'd expect for casting with pretty much everyone on this list. The only two that I would say feel like they're spot on is Richard Madden as Icarus and Leah McHugh, who I don't know too much about, to be honest, as Sprite. A lot of us were speculating that what's her name from Stranger Things was going to end up playing Sprite, because, I mean, she looked the part. There was that coy like teasing of her. But I'm just really excited for what this film could be. I just don't know really what it is at this time, and that's the most interesting thing about it to me. Would you rather see them fight Ajax / Gilgamesh, or would you rather see them fight the Deviants?
I'd rather see them fight the Deviants.
Interesting. Okay, see, because the only reason I think that it's not going to be the Deviants is because we haven't really heard any casting about the Deviants, unless they're just going to be all CGI monsters. Yeah. So that's my only thing I'm thinking. It might not be what we think it is. So let's move on here. We got Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We obviously know the two title characters. We got Sam Wilson. We've got our Bucky Barnes. They're going to be taking on Baron Zemo, as it seems. From all accounts, I've been hearing that we're going to get Agent 13 back, which is cool, because we haven't seen her since, Civil War? Mm-hmm. What do you think about the idea of Baron Zemo returning?
I think it's a pretty cool idea.
Do you think he's enough of a character to last 10, maybe 12 episodes and keep your attention? Okay. I figured as much, but I wanted to ask. So we're going to get that in the fall of 2020. So it won't be here until next year. But Daniel Bruhl, they finally showed him in this like staticky teaser during Comic-Con, and he has the purple mask. So I'm like, you know what? I wasn't too sold on the shy, bookish version that we got in Civil War. I do respect the master plan that he put together, which is basically I can just poke at at Iron Man and he'll, get triggered over daddy and mommy issues. And I get that. And I think it's actually more brilliant the more I think about it. But I didn't really love that version. So to see him continue on and really, don the mask and have more of a little bit of a villainous vibe to him in this one, I really want to see Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It just sounds like it'll be a solid thing from beginning to end. I'm just wondering how interesting it's going to be. Like, is he going to have like a big, like Lex Luthor style master plan, or is he going to just like pit Falcon and Winter Soldier against each other? Like he did it with the rest of the team in Civil War.
No, I think he'll have a different strategy.
All right. So let's move on with Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This one, I wouldn't say came out of nowhere, but the title and where they decided to go with it, I think shocked a lot of people, because for a while there, we were kind of thinking there was no way we were going to get the Mandarin, and we're getting him. Do you think this was the right way to go with Shang-Chi, or would you have gone a different way?
I don't really know. Like, I don't really know much about Shang-Chi, so I don't know a lot about Shang-Chi.
So basically, think Iron Fist, but obviously, there are Asian interpretations of Iron Fist as well. But yeah, imagine Iron Fist minus the Iron Fist part of it, and he's just a master of all martial arts. So he's going to basically take it to the Mandarin and probably the rest of the Ten Rings. So Simu Liu, who's a relative newcomer to a lot of people and probably one of the nicest guys, because after he got the part, I did my little bit of research on the guy. Seems like the nicest, most genuine person in the world. And I'm really excited that he got the role, because a lot of people do their, this guy's popular in the Asian community. We'll just assume that he's got the role. And I mean, this went to a relative newcomer. He just seems like he's very talented in the martial arts side of things, and had been teasing Marvel for like 5 to 10 years. Like, hey, when are you guys going to get a martial arts character that happens to be Asian American on your side of things? And then sure enough, he actually lands the role. I mean, it's a sweet little story, and I'm glad that he got it. So that movie's going to be dropping February 12th in 2021 with him. I think Awkwafina is supposed to be in the movie too, they announced, which is interesting. She might be like the I'm trying to like Kat Dennings was in Thor, where she's kind of like the funny side character. As you know, he'll probably be
gotcha.
serious for the most part, and then she'll kind of add some levity, as she does with pretty much everything she does. And then Tony Leung, who's gonna play the real Mandarin. Are you okay? And this might sound a little silly, maybe even a little racist, so I apologize if it's a bit offensive. But do you want him to see him go kind of like full Fu Manchu, like crazy goatee, and or do you want him to just be like the guys we saw play the Ten Rings characters in Iron Man, where they're just kind of a Eastern descent, and maybe he's just got 10 rings on his hand? How?
I think they could go either way.
Okay. I mean, yeah, because I've heard both things, and I mean, if you're really embracing Asian culture, I don't think it has to go into that almost offensive way like Big Trouble in Little China did, where everyone's got like giant hats and ridiculous frills everywhere. But I think there's a nice balance that you can pull off that makes these characters interesting, not only to watch, but like I mentioned before, even the villains, you've got to sympathize with them a little bit. And no one needs to have a cartoonish character. So I think that what they're going to put together will probably excite and surprise us when it gets around here. But we got at least 2 more years before that movie comes out, so it'll be a bit. Then WandaVision comes out. So this one is a really interesting one. So obviously Wanda Maximoff, our Scarlet Witch, and Paul Bettany's Vision are going to be joined by Teyonah Parris, who is the adult version of Monica Rambeau. So what's your take on this? Because we're basically getting another Captain Marvel in this universe.
I mean, if they want to introduce her in a more adult version, I guess that's cool.
Yeah, I actually wanted to see Photon for a while. I mean, that's her code name, like everyone that's a superhero gets one. I want to see what Teyonah does, because, I mean, obviously there were some of us who did not like the Captain Marvel portrayal. I mean, honestly, Endgame kind of helped with some of that, but I think when you get to Teyonah's version, we might get a version that we really like, and maybe she'll be our definitive Captain Marvel. Either way, like from what I've heard, there's going to be like a bit of a Atomic Family vibe to what they've got with Wanda and Vision. I think it could be interesting. I just hope it's not like too domesticated, because I still want to see them do like superhero outings and things like that. I want that to be fun. How does this one rank on your list? Because I'm guessing it's probably not very high.
I mean, it's a little lower, I would say.
Yeah. What's interesting, though, is how this will tie into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which, I mean, there's like 3 different things in that phrase right there that already excite me. Doctor Strange, Multiverse, and it's, madness. I mean,
it's supposed to be a horror movie, or
right.
A horror movie like.
Yeah, which I'm a little concerned about that, but Wanda Maximoff is apparently supposed to, quote unquote, appear on his doorstep by the time she's done with her adventure on the TV side. So it's going to connect right into this. How it does, why it does, not entirely sure, but I love to see, Boy Witch and Lady Witch going at it for the sake of the universe, or the multiverse for this matter. How crazy do you think the multiverse is going to be in Doctor Strange?
I hope they make it pretty crazy. I hope they don't hold back.
Yeah, me too. I heard that they're going to have Nightmare be the villain. I can't confirm that yet, but I think that only adds to the horror element that you brought up before, so should be good, to say the least. We also have Loki. So Loki's got the Tesseract. Spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen Endgame by now. And the logo, I got a lot of complaints today about this logo. So it's got 4 different fonts for each of the letters in the name Loki. From what I've been told, it's him jumping through space and time. So he'll be in like the Middle Ages. It'll be him in like the 80s. It'll be him at all these different points in time. And that's why they've kind of done it the way that they have, because this is him literally just, moving through space and time, like I said. So does Loki jumping all over the world or through time and space, does that intrigue you, or would you rather do something different with Loki?
Honestly, it doesn't intrigue me that much.
Oh, it really doesn't? What would you have him do if you were given the chance?
I mean, it's just a side story. I mean, it's not entirely intriguing, personally.
Yeah, I do wonder what they would do with it, in the future. Like, let's just say it was like the biggest series they had, because there are a lot of Hiddleston fans. If it became one of their biggest series, what do you spin it off into his own movie? Like, what do you do with Loki? Does he just pop in for the next Thor film? Like, there's all sorts of questions that come out of that series for me. But, I mean, as long as they do it right, because I'm already a little upset, and we talked about this with the Endgame, how I feel about their perspective on time travel. Like, oh, if I just put it back, everything's fine, or how certain characters don't have to worry about interacting with each other. Like, it's all time travel stuff, and I won't go down that rabbit hole because it's a bit much. But I'm just curious to see how it plays out. So we already talked yesterday about What If, which is the next one. That's going to be summer of 2021. So we won't see it for a little bit. I do think it's really cool, and we didn't mention this in our What If fun talk there, but Jeffrey Wright is going to play the Watcher. Do you know who Jeffrey Wright is?
Not offhand.
He is, he's that bald-headed African-American gentleman. I can't think of his name, but he's one of the main stars of Westworld.
Okay.
I can't think of it. He does so many good movies. I can't think of him off the top of my head, unfortunately. But I know the second you see him, you know who I'm talking about. But yeah, him being the Watcher, I think would be a really cool thing. Because he has kind of that deep and booming voice, you know? So, what if? Who's to say? I mean, they put up everyone from Natalie Portman to I'm trying to think of who else. I mean, just a lot of who's who and who's come and gone in the Marvel Universe so far. So you're going to see a lot of old faces, new faces, and some people in between. One of the things I thought was most interesting, Reddit picked up on this. If you zoom in on the W part of the What If image, there's a zombie Captain America. So people are wondering if they're going to go into Marvel Zombies. So could happen. It could just happen to be coincidence that some of these things are just in there. But what if, right? And next up is Hawkeye. So fall of 2021 on Disney Plus, we're going to have Jeremy Renner teaching his daughter, Kate Bishop, or, well, we assume it's going to be his daughter is going to be referred to as Kate Bishop. But either way, it's him and Kate doing what appears to be akin to the Matt Fraction run, which is a great read if you guys ever get a chance. Do you want to see more from Hawkeye, or is this just kind of like an extra thing for you?
It's an extra thing.
Okay. I'm excited for it, honestly. I want to see Hawkeye in a situation that isn't the end of the world. Like him on a street level thing. Like I always felt he and Black Widow made more sense on Netflix along with the Daredevils and all those types, because they have villains traditionally that aren't going to destroy the world. They're more like, I'm going to, I don't know, flood New York with a poison gas or something like that. You know, kind of more like one person can take this on and he doesn't have to be the Hulk kind of villains. And I want to see those sorts of like street level interactions and fights. So I'm curious to see how Hawkeye will turn out, but I think that one's going to be a big one. And I think we've only just got a couple more here before we're all done. So Thor: Love and Thunder. I think this one might be the one that just blows people away. Not necessarily in a visual perspective, but because everyone loved Thor Ragnarok. Even though I had a hard time adjusting to it, I even found myself loving it. The humor was just so good. The story was intriguing, and the cast is just completely delightful. And it feels like they're going to continue that on. And apparently our re-recruit, if you will, Natalie Portman coming back as Jane Foster, had like one meeting apparently with Taika Waititi and was sold immediately. Like she was really on the outs after what happened, because we've talked about this before, I think on previous episodes, but she was supposed to be more involved with Thor: The Dark World. And then they brought in Alan Taylor, which she did not sign on for, hated the script, hated the way that her character was going. And then she just decided, I don't need to be a part of the Marvel Universe anymore. And they just kept writing off her character because they're like, well, we had a breakup and all that stuff. And it's an easy thing to do, but she's coming back and she's going to end up being Thor by the end of this thing. Are you ready for Lady Thor?
It'll be interesting to see if she gets jacked for the role, or if they have a different actress portray, I guess, when she turns into Thor.
I mean, I don't think she's going to get Thor jacked, but I think she's going to look like Tessa Thompson probably. She's going to have a definitely a more pronounced physique by the time the movie comes out. I really can't wait to see what they do, because, well, first of all, I always like the idea of like her being passed the torch, so to speak. But does that mean that Thor now is going to become more of an outcast, or is he going to find love with her and then maybe he just voluntarily gives it up because maybe he's just tired of doing it? It's like, hey, you take this. I'm good. I don't know. Like, it's very interesting because as far as I remember, Thor gives up the mantle because he wasn't worthy, and then she was. Someone can correct me. I'm sure someone will. But in this case, I don't think Thor comes off as unworthy. He's proven himself to be worthy of that mantle now. But he did also kind of give it up to Valkyrie by making her queen or king of the people, or however they're putting it. So what would you like to see from Thor Love and Thunder?
I don't really know.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I mean, it'll be fun at the end of the day, really.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it needs to be. Black Widow, we know a lot actually about this one. Obviously, Taskmaster, which we've seen in photos, is going to be our main villain. Scarlett Johansson is obviously coming back to be Natasha. Then we've added David Harbour, who's going to play Alexei, who we know to be Red Guardian, who's basically like a Russian version of Captain America. So that's kind of intriguing. Florence Pugh, who is going to play Yelena Belova, and she is basically just another recruit in the Red Room. So she eventually becomes a Black Widow herself, and could end up taking the mantle. O.T. Fagbenel, I might have pronounced that incorrectly, but someone will tell me later, as Mason, who is actually from the comics too. He's like a Steve Trevor character, so he'll probably be like just the male confidant to Natasha in this movie. And then Rachel Weisz as Melina, who in the comics is basically like a metal armored secret agent that's basically like another Black Widow herself. From everything I'm hearing, it seems like the concept of the Red Room being like everywhere in her life, like all of these different recruits, it could be that they're all just kind of intermingling with each other. I just get that feeling that Melina will probably be less of a armor-plated supervillain and more of a kind of like Dr. Poison was in Wonder Woman, where she's a little bit villainous, but she's not like super over the top either, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And obviously Taskmaster will be our big bad. Who's playing him? Who knows? But I think there's a lot of cool stuff to come with Marvel. And then lastly, we have Mahershala Ali for Phase 5, which was teased at the very end, becoming Blade. So are you excited that we're getting Blade?
Yes.
Do you think it's long overdue?
I wouldn't say long overdue.
Okay.
He's just kind of, hopefully he kind of fits into what they are trying to do.
Oh, I think
in Phase 5.
Yeah. And see, I have this working theory, and we'll just call it a wrap here after this, that I think what they're trying to do with Phase 5 is they're going to kind of reboot the entire universe, essentially. They're going to come in, they're going to say, okay, we've got all the things that really kicked us off in the first place at the late 90s, so it's going to be Blade. You're going to have X-Men, Fantastic Four, all of those kind of movies are going to kind of come back into their own. Spider-Man have already been there, obviously, but those are going to be like your big movies of Phase 5, and I can't wait to see them. We might even actually get Spider-Man by Phase 4, because even though it wasn't announced here, he's part of the Sony lineup, so we could actually still get more Marvel movies down the road, and that could even come up at D23. So is there anything more you want to see? Anything that you still are waiting to see and are excited for? What is your thoughts on Phase 4 and potentially Phase 5?
I think the only question mark I really have in terms of Phase 4 is maybe Eternals.
Okay.
Maybe.
You said that's what you're concerned about?
Out of all of them, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no, I get that, because it's a lot of unknown territory. And for something that's coming up so quickly on us, too, because that movie comes out, I believe I mentioned it earlier, but I think it's beginning of next year, if I'm not mistaken. That's really soon. So I don't know, much like yourself, how it's going to play with audiences, but I mean, people had their worries and their fears about Guardians of the Galaxy when it first came out, and I mean, it took off like gangbusters. So hopefully they know what they're doing with this one. But you feel at least pretty good about it?
Yeah.
Okay. And for clarification's sake, it does drop November 6th of next year. So we got a little bit more time. We'll definitely get some more details and trailers and all that stuff as we get closer to it. But yeah, I'm really curious to see how it all goes. I'm very excited for what Phase 5 is going to bring us. But there's still a lot of really good stuff in Phase 4, and I know I'm getting that Disney Plus app as soon as possible. Any other final thoughts, or think we've pretty much said all that needs to be said?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for listening for this episode. Obviously, San Diego Comic-Con, every time we do these, there's always so much information that we have to pack in here. Maybe even a little too much. But as of next week, we're going to go back to our standard 3 topics per category and get back to our normal stuff like we like to do. And hopefully keep it to about an hour next time as well. So thank you again for listening. What are your thoughts on Phase 4? Let us know. Hit us up, nerdragepod@gmail.com for any of your thoughts, questions, or if you even want to be on the show sometime. We have a lot of cool stuff lined up. You can find us on Facebook, pretty much anywhere podcasts can be found. Give us a review on iTunes and hopefully make it positive. And check out like our TeePublic store. Check out any of our other sites. Even go to our website if you want to find all things Nerd Rage Podcast. It is thenerdragepodcast.com. Yeah, follow us anywhere we're at, and there's going to be a lot more stuff to come in the future. So for the Nerd Rage Podcast, I've been Ryan Anderson.
And I've been Brad Thurman.
And we'll see you guys again next week.